Late October. New York. Gloomy sky, rain, gray asphalt. Leaves scrape across the windshield like someone outside is dragging their fingers over the glass. In the underground garage of a high-rise apartment building, two men are loading gear into the trunk of a silver Volkswagen Tiguan. "You positive you checked everything, Ethan?" Ivan asked, pulling a backpack with a metal detector over his shoulder. "Because I'm really not trying to drive 7 hours again, just to find a rusty spoon and some old Cold War junk." "First of all, that was a German spoon," Ethan said dryly, carefully setting a box of tools into place. "Second, you were the one who wanted to dig in that ravine because, quote, the vibe felt right." "The vibe did feel right," Ivan smirked. "I found that rusty can of condensed milk, remember? Covered in mud, but still technically edible. I was this close to opening it." Ethan shot him a look. "You're something else, Ivan. Honestly, I should donate you to a museum." "Oh yeah?" "Sure. Put you in the wing for the joke section. At least I'm fun. You walk around looking like you've spent your whole life reading federal regulations." They both laughed. For all their differences, they were tied together by the same obsession: treasure hunting. Ethan, serious and thoughtful, worked as a lawyer, collected artifacts, and had half the academic literature on historical digs practically memorized. Even, a sales manager, loved adrenaline, risk, and the dream of hitting one insane jackpot. Today they were driving to one of the most remote, forgotten little settlements in upstate New York. A place the locals barely even mentioned anymore: Raven Creek Hollow. According to rumor, sometime in the 18th century, an old cache had been hidden there. Gold jewelry, weapons, and something referred to only as the Grave Seal. "You print the map?" Ivan asked as he climbed into the car. "No, I live in the present. It's all on my tablet. Here." Ethan turned the screen toward him. An old settlement was marked there, surrounded by woods. There's access by an old dirt road, then about a mile on foot. But judging by satellite images, there's barely anything left. Just the church and a couple of houses. Perfect. Maybe a ghost preacher will greet us at the edge of town. Touch the treasure and I'll curse you forever. If anyone curses us, it'll be because of your jokes. I'm serious. Look at this place. It's got every horror cliche lined up: abandoned village, ancient gold, fog, a curse, and two city idiots walking straight into it. Don't pull me into your bullshit yet. When we find the stash, you'll be calling me your lucky brother." They pulled out. Ethan drove the way he always did, carefully, almost annoyingly steady. Ivan talked non-stop, but every now and then he would go quiet and stare out the window into the long gray stretch of highway. In his head, he was already seeing old chests, gleaming coins, twisted gold bracelets. "You really think there's actually something buried there?" Ivan finally asked. "I found a late 19th century map. It says, north of the church, by the dead pine. I cross-checked it with survey maps. The location matches the edge of the settlement. If someone hid valuables, that's exactly where they do it. Far from people." "And what if somebody got there first? Who would go out there?" "There's no cell service, the ground's swampy, and the place is half gone. Just us. Yeah, we're real adventurers. Graveyard Adventurers. That should be our YouTube channel name. Episode 1. We dug too deep and released an ancient hell horse. I'm already regretting bringing you." They left the highway. The dirt road wound between dead-looking fields and sparse woods. The trees thickened. Fog started spreading low across the ground. Ivan got quieter. Weird place, huh? He muttered. Feels like, I don't know, like it doesn't want people coming here. It's just fall. Everything looks miserable in October. Don't turn it into something mystical. But the closer they got to the village, the quieter Ivan became. Even the jokes dried up. Ahead of them stood a crooked wooden sign, Raven Creek. Under it was a bent, half-rusted warning plate with faded red letters. Danger area. No trespassing. You said there wasn't anything restricted out here. It's probably an old state warning sign, maybe from drainage work or mining or whatever used to happen around here. Just meant to scare people off. Great. We didn't need help with that. We showed up already scared. Ethan slowed down near a fallen tree. Past that point, the road disappeared into the woods. According to the GPS, it was about a 20-minute walk from there to the remains of the village. Ready? He asked. Ivan nodded silently and picked up the shovel and detector. The gray forest welcomed them with silence. Even the birds were gone. The path twisted between dead trees and led them deeper into the middle of nowhere. Fog lay across the ground in ragged strips like old gray hair. Ivan, usually incapable of shutting up, said nothing. He just kept adjusting the strap on the metal detector. Ethan walked a little ahead, checking the tablet. By the map, the settlement should be right past that rise, he said, nodding toward the dark shape of structures barely visible between the pines. They stepped into a small clearing, and the silence there felt different, heavier. A few rotting log houses stood in front of them. They looked less abandoned by people than abandoned by time itself. The roofs had collapsed in. The windows were empty black holes like eye sockets and skulls. One house had a front door hanging from a single hinge, gently swaying in the wind. On the warped porch lay a child's rag doll with faded eyes. Its face was twisted, as if it had frozen in fear. Wow, Ivan whispered. This place looks like it was built for some paranormal TV special. Stay focused. There's the church. At the edge of the village, choked by brush and tall weeds, rose an old brick church. Its domes were long gone, the roof caved in, but faded murals still clung to the walls, almost erased, yet disturbingly alive somehow. Near the entrance were tracks, not fresh but not ancient either, like someone had been inside recently. You see that? Even pointed. Footprints. Human. Pretty big ones too. Maybe a drifter. Maybe urban explorers. Creepy places attract people. Well, we're not exactly here on a guided museum tour either, Ivan muttered. Though right now I'd gladly take one. They checked two of the houses. Inside rot, broken brick, abandoned household junk. You don't feel like this place is off? Ivan asked, staring at an old protective charm hanging above one doorway. It's a dead village. There are thousands like this all over the country. It's abandoned, that's it. Still feels like someone's watching us. Evening crept up on them without warning. Dusk settled over the clearing, and the woods suddenly seemed closer, pressing in, alive. They decided to spend the night in the most intact house they could find. They covered the floor with plastic and rolled out sleeping bags. Ivan had a thermos. Ethan had military rations and a headlamp. Hey, remember those scary story games when we were kids? Ivan said, opening a can of stew. I screamed my head off when you told that story about the black priest in the well. You almost shit yourself. I did not. I was being strategic. That got a laugh out of both of them, and for a minute the tension broke. But once they lay down, a dead silence settled over the house. No insects, nothing. Somewhere far off, a branch creaked, then silence again, and then thump, 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 footsteps, heavy. On the street outside, Ethan sat up. Yvonne exhaled hard and turned on the flashlight. You heard that? He whispered. Yeah? They froze. The footsteps moved past the window, then stopped. A board creaked. Then something knocked against the wall. Once, twice, 3 times. Ethan slowly crawled toward the window and looked out. Nobody. It was wind, or an animal, or somebody who doesn't like that we're here. They sat there without speaking, until the sounds finally died away. Yvonne tried to crack a joke, but his voice shook. Well, if that was some ancient spirit, maybe it came by to check permits. You're the lawyer. Explain that we have excavation rights by public initiative. Go to sleep. We dig in the morning. They tried, but outside the night had a life of its own. Something whispered in the brush. The church door creaked. Somewhere far away, almost like it came from underground, there was a dull metallic ring, as if someone had struck iron. Something in that village did not want to be disturbed. Morning came in cold and ugly. The fog hadn't lifted. If anything, it had gotten thicker, settling in beads on the shovels, the detector, and their clothes. The ground underfoot was wet and sucking. Ethan checked coordinates in silence. Yvonne stood there with the metal detector, sweeping it over the ground without much confidence. If I don't find at least one thing made of gold today, I'm officially changing careers and going into bottle collecting, he muttered. At least those cash out. While you're picking up empty bottles, I'll be finding King Atis's dagger and turning it over to a museum. Or if I'm lucky, an auction house. You're adorable, Ethan. The museum gives you a certificate. An auction gets you audited. Ethan smirked. They moved along the edge of the village, following the note from the old map, by the dead pine. We're here, Ethan said. We start digging here. For 6 hours they worked the ground. The metal detector kept chirping, but every time they dug something up it was just more junk. Rusted wire, bent nails, scraps of tin, old machine parts. Treasure, huh? Yvonne said, crouched in the mud. I'm starting to think you just tricked me into doing free labor. Sometimes the first layer is empty, then under that there's something. Sure, and under the third one there's gonna be an old woman in a burial shroud. By lunchtime a light rain started coming down. Digging got harder. The soil turned soft and heavy, and the gear started acting up. Look, Ethan shouted. He pulled something from the dirt. A pot. An old one, rusted through. Oh, that's hilarious, Ivan groaned. I came prepared for a tomb, not a kitchen. Enough for today. We keep going like this, we won't make it to dark. Let's get back to the house, eat something, rest. Tomorrow we try another point. Dirty, exhausted, and disappointed, they went back to the same house. They ate dinner in silence. The canned food wasn't helping morale anymore. Even Ivan's jokes sounded forced now. If I wake up tomorrow with black eyes and start speaking some ancient burial language, hit me with a shovel. Immediately. No hesitation. You already speak in a dead language. Your jokes expired a century ago. They lay down, and before long the silence returned. Only now it was different. Outside it wasn't just the wind whispering. Something was moving through the grass, dragging claws over wet wood. The sounds were closer now, deeper, heavier. Something stopped right under the windows. First there was a crack, like a dry branch snapping. Then something sharp scraped along the wall. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Then another sound, from under the floor, like something was scraping from below. Soft at first, then harder with pressure, like claws dragging over wood. Shh. Purr. Skr. Ethan, if you could explain this to me logically, I'll buy you a museum. Maybe a raccoon or a rat. A raccoon with steel claws and 3 legs. Something crashed in the attic directly over them. Boom. They both jumped up. Ivan had a folding knife in his hand. Then came the pounding. Dull. Wet. As if something heavy and loose had slammed into the front door. Then again. Then a third time, harder, with a rattling metallic shake. Ivan flinched. Ethan grabbed the lamp. That's wind, Ivan said weakly, not believing himself. We're leaving in the morning. Even if the gold is buried right under this place, it can stay there, Ethan said. Agreed. The next impact hit so hard the boards cracked. The lamp shook in Ethan's hands, throwing trembling shadows across the peeling walls. Then they appeared in the windows. Gray faces, stretched. Rips of hanging skin clinging to bone like torn flesh. Pus seeped from hollow eye sockets. Lips were split open, and exposed teeth grated in soundless snarls. One of them was missing half its head, and still pounded at the glass with a bloody fist. Another one crawled, dragging a trail of rot behind it. One window cracked. Then the next one burst with a dull pop. They're getting in, Ivan screamed, grabbing an old chair. Jesus Christ, what the hell are those? What did we wake up? Ethan slammed the bar across the door, but it was already buckling. Underneath it, filthy fingers pushed inward, half rotted, with the nails long as bone splinters. Plaster rained from the ceiling, and something started moving above them in the attic, scraping back and forth. Ethan grabbed an old iron pry bar off the floor so hard his knuckles turned white. Ivan, on the edge of panic, darted around the room trying to block every open gap. The floorboards cracked like eggshells as the first rotten hand reached through the broken window. Then another. Then a face pushed in after them. Collapsed eyes, dead mouth hanging open. Get ready, Ethan shouted, gripping the bar with both hands. Don't let them get close. The first corpse climbed through the window, its bones cracking with every movement, like it had been put together from dead branches. But every motion was horribly precise. Ivan grabbed an old cast-iron stove door and smashed it into the thing's head. The skull burst with a disgusting wet sound. Rot sprayed across the room, and the thing dropped, twitching. More are coming, Ivan yelled. Another figure lurched into the opening. Its lower jaw was gone. Skin hung off its face, and pale larvae pushed in and out of its eye sockets. Ethan charged and rammed the pry bar into its chest, punching through ribs and pinning it against the wall. Outside they could hear bones cracking as the dead moved around the house, closing in slowly from every side. But the ones already inside didn't wait. One of them tore what was left of the window frame loose and jumped in. Its body was blackened, burned. and half its face had peeled away. Yvonne kicked it in the chest, knocked it onto the floor, then shoved an old cabinet down on top of it. With a crashing thud, the corpse went still, trapped under the broken doors. "We can't hold this room," Yvonne shouted. "We need a narrow choke point, the kitchen, one entrance." Ethan nodded, and they fell back toward the kitchen, throwing chairs and loose boards behind them to slow the dead. One corpse caught its leg on a chair and went down, ripping its own leg off in the process, but it still kept crawling, jaw clacking against the floor like a dog gnawing bone. The kitchen was dark. Only the shaking lamplight cut through it. Yvonne found an old, rusted axe. "You take the doorway. I've got the window. If they break through, we fight to the end." "Don't say that," Ethan said darkly. "We're getting out." And then the slaughter started. Every corpse that pushed into the kitchen took a hit. Pry bar to the chest, axe to the face. Yvonne hacked arms off, kicked knees out, dropped them to the floor. Ethan hit with such fury the pry bar split skulls like rotten pumpkins. The blood was black and thick as oil, and the stink became unbearable. But they kept coming, one after another, dozens. "This is impossible," Yvonne rasped, shaking with exhaustion. "We drew them here," Ethan said. "They were waiting." "Waiting for us? Why?" The floor was carpeted with bodies. Some still moved. Some were dead for real now. For 1 second there was a hideous silence, and in that silence, a voice came from the darkness outside. Hoarse, slow, rotting. "Those who resist live longer, but they still die." "The cellar," Ethan suddenly breathed. "We saw a hatch under the rug. If they break through, maybe that buys us time." "The cellar?" Yvonne's voice trembled. At that exact moment, the front door cracked, with a sound like a spine breaking. The boards bent inward. On the other side came a wet chewing noise, as if something was eating dirt and sucking air through nostrils that had rotted away long ago. "We got another option," Ethan said quietly, yanking the rug aside. Under it was an old hatch. He grabbed the iron ring and pulled. Creak. Dust. A smell of mildew and death. Yvonne didn't argue. They both dropped into the crawl space, and the hatch slammed shut above them the instant the front door exploded inward. The darkness in the cellar felt alive. It stretched around them like slime. Ethan's flashlight was the only light left. The beam shook over stone walls, old forged metal tools, rotten rags. "You hear that?" Yvonne whispered. "They're coming after us." Above them the floor creaked. Footsteps. A lot of them, uneven, limping, scraping. And then the voice again, hoarse as sand spoken in a dead language. "You brought warm flesh." The flashlight jerked. The beam landed on the far wall. There, inside a recess, sat something. Most of its skin had sloughed off, exposing muscle and tendon. The face was almost human, but stretched, as if someone had sculpted it out of wax and then melted it. Its eyes were empty holes filled with strands of black webbing. It moved, rose slowly. The keeper, the dead guardian. "We didn't come for this," Ethan muttered. "You came. To him. Now you stay. With him." Others began pushing out of the walls. Silent, rotting, bent into impossible shapes. Their mouths opened soundlessly. They crawled toward them, and it felt like the earth under their feet was moving, like the cellar itself was breathing. "We have to get out," Ethan said, grabbing Yvonne by the arm. There's a vent tunnel back there. They ran. Ethan first. Yvonne behind him, covering their backs. The Guardian reached after them without standing up, sliding forward like a slug. The tunnel was narrow, rough, half collapsed. Jagged edges tore at their shoulders. Somewhere ahead there was fresh air. But behind them, through the dark, that same voice kept coming. You will still come back. You saw me. And when Ethan finally crawled out into the woods, covered in mud and blood, Yvonne was no longer behind him. Only a distant scream, dragged apart by the wind, and a dead whisper fading into the damp air. One always stays behind. Ethan opened his eyes with a sharp, broken gasp, like he had just burst out of freezing water. His heart was pounding. His chest hurt with every breath. For a few seconds he had no idea where he was. Then the familiar dark of his bedroom, the ceiling over the bed, the smell of the city at night drifting in through the half-open window. Home. Brooklyn. Alive. Alone. He ran a hand over his face, wet with sweat. The sheet had twisted around his legs. The ringing was still in his ears, the whispers, the screaming, the dead voices from the dream. He sat up against the wall and tried to breathe evenly. He got up slowly, walked into the kitchen, flicked the light on. It trembled for a second, just like the lamp in the dream. Everything looked normal, ordinary, but he could feel it. That hadn't been just a dream. It felt like a blow to the chest, a warning, something that could not be ignored. The clock read 6:45 a.m. In 15 minutes, he was supposed to meet Ivan in the parking lot by the subway station, so they could drive out to that same upstate ghost village. For the treasure, or the adventure, as Ivan liked to call it. Ethan stared at his phone screen, and something inside him, old, instinctive, cold, kept saying, "Don't go. Don't you dare." He hit call. "Hello," Ivan answered, upbeat, already half laughing. "What's up, treasure man? You awake? I'm pouring coffee into the thermos right now. Let's go get rich." For a few seconds, Ethan said nothing. Then he exhaled slowly and said flatly, "We're not going, Ivan. I changed my mind." "What? What are you talking about?" Ivan's voice stumbled. "You were the one saying the site was real, that the records matched, that there were actual signs something was there. Where'd all that lawyer, archaeologist energy go?" "No, Ivan, we're not going. Just forget that place, okay?" A long pause. "Are you sick? You okay?" "I'm fine. Just don't call me today, alright?" He ended the call. He kept staring at the black phone screen until it dimmed completely. The apartment was quiet. Unnaturally quiet. Outside, somebody was walking along the sidewalk, their footsteps making a faint crunch. Ethan shut the window, locked the door, then locked it again. Only after that did he sit down. The dream had left something behind, like ash on his tongue. He couldn't settle all day. And that evening on his way to the bathroom, he caught a glimpse of the mirror in the hallway. For one brief instant, he thought there was a shape in the reflection, far back in the dark. No face, no real form, just a shadow. He blinked, and it was gone. He never told anybody what he saw. Not about the dead hammering at the house. Not about the voices, rotten, lifeless, but insistent, calling to him, "You came on your own. You are needed. You are mine." From that day on, he never went treasure hunting again. Not once. But every night when he passed the mirror, he tried not to look directly into it, because one day, the shadow might not disappear. "If you've made it this far," you're ready for the next story. It's already waiting on the channel.